confirm that everyone who attended the Beit Midrash seems to still be alive today, so that's a good thing.
Oh, excellent.
Good job.
Okay, everybody. Great to see you or not see you, as the case may be. Brenda. Sorry for a minute. Okay. Hi, Beth. Okay, those courageous people who are turning your videos on, welcome. Hi, Susan. Good to see you. Hi, Lena. Hi, Linda. Oh, thank you for turning your videos on. I welcome more faces in the room. Faces in the room. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Hello, Miriam J. Welcome. Where are you coming from?
I'm downtown in Greenwich Village.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome.
You can tell from all the trees.
Hello, David. Welcome. Wait, is that David? Do I know you?
Yep.
Okay, well, welcome. Welcome.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, open book.
Matt was here in person last week.
I heard. Oh my God, I missed a lot last week. There was dinner, there was lunch, there was Matt. Oh well. All right, everybody, let's see. Is it 8:45? It's 8:46. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We have another juicy Parsha. But what's interesting about this Parsha is the narrative mostly stops. Not much narrative, right? It's sort of a hard crash down from the top of Sinai, which was last week. Yitra. We're going to talk about that shift in literature and what that means. After we do the blessing over Torah. Hi, Mark Horn. I don't see you, but I know you just stepped in. I saw your name. Okay, everybody, in cacophony. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. Amen, amen. We have a three for today. It's Shabbat Shkalim, right? It's the one of the 5 special Shabbatot leading up to Passover. And it's the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh, before the new month, before Adar is coming. And it's Valentine's Day. And it's, of course, Shabbat. So, welcome to this moment. Hi, Juliet.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can share my screen, and we're going to dive into Mishpatim. Let's see if this is going to work. So as I do this, this looks like the right one. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about this shift. So far the Torah has been narrative with a few legal interjections, but interjections in the midst of narrative, right? Like this is part of the narrative. So here are different territories. This is all about civil law, right? A whole parsha practically of, different situations and what we should do in those situations. And we're going to look at one of those in Open Book this morning and one of those later in during services during Open Up. And today we're going to look at the laws of setting your Hebrew slave free, right? So already that's shocking. Like we just came out of Egypt, we were slaves, right? And then the first law is about, having a Hebrew slave. Like what is going on here? So we're going to talk about what is going on here. What is this about? And we're going to talk a little bit about the shift in the literary mode. Okay, so that's the introduction, but I called it From the Real to the Ideal because if we have time, we're going to end with a mystical passage, right? Back to narrative, a stunning passage about seeing God, very shocking and strange. So, starting from slavery and then climbing back up the mountain, so to speak. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. So this is the beginning of the parsha. Vayidaber Elohim et kol hadvarim ha'ela le'mor Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim beit abadim. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the beginning of the parsha. I'm starting in one of the Ten Commandments just to give you a sense of how God identifies God's self at the beginning of the Ten Commandments, to show how central this idea of having been brought out of Egypt and having been slaves is to who God is and who we are, right? You know, I am God who brought you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slaves. That is who I am to you. I am your God who did that. Right, so I'm not just any abstract God, right? The medieval philosophers are into abstract gods and not identifying God in positive terms. But here, it's like, no, this is who I am. And this is who I am to you. Okay, now we're starting our parsha. Ve'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. And these are the rules that you shall set before them. Okay, so let's look at what Ismar Shorsh has to say about that. So Ismar Shorsh was the chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary when I was there. Also a rabbi and professor of Jewish history, and he says, with this week's parsha, our landscape changes abruptly. We take leave of the hospitable realm of narrative history and enter the austere world of legal rules and cultic regulations, where we shall stay put with but one brief excursion until we reach chapter 11 of the book of Numbers. So hospitable realm in the sense that, welcome, hi Ricardo, long time no see, hi Rain. Hospitable in the sense that, like, narrative's fun, right? You sort of get you enter narrative, you know, it's like the omniscient narrator, and you're in a story, and it's exciting, it's interesting, it's dramatic, and then, oh, really? Law after law? I mean, I don't know if you feel like I do, it's sort of a letdown. It's a little boring.
Just sudden.
What?
Just sudden.
It's also sudden.
Yeah.
It's also sudden.
It's all fun and games till the loss.
What is it?
It's all fun and games until the loss.
It's all funny. Well, it's not exactly funny. I mean, it's violence, deception, and lies, but it's dramatic. I mean, it's like watching Succession, right? Okay. So then he goes on to say, there can be no doubt that law is central to the Torah's conception of religion. Boundaries create order and give shape to existence. Community springs from the limits placed on individual freedom. And I would add something else. It's not only community springs from the limits placed on individual freedom, but the notion of freedom is not about individualism. The notion of freedom is actually being willing to be constrained by the limits placed upon one by community, right? Which is a little different, right? I think in this society, we're all like, okay, I can do whatever. My daughter always says to me, I can do whatever I want. We're like, actually, no, you can't. But that's also a choice, right? That sensitivity and awareness of your impact on others is also a discipline. And to me, ultimately, what freedom is about, like, how do we use our freedom? What's freedom for? I remember when I was an adolescent, my mother said to me, what do you want? Because she was horrified by my rebellion. I said, I want to be free. And she said, free for what? And what I wanted to answer was, free from what? That's not the question she asked. Right? The free from what was free from my parents, of course, right? So, yeah. Okay, so let's see what Rashi says about these mishpatim. Asher tasim lifnehem. So there's a very interesting locution here, right? It says that God says to Moshe, like, that you shall put before them, you shall set before them. So what's that language about? Amar lo hakadosh baruch hu Moshe. So God said, the Holy Blessed One be they, said to Moshe, Lo ta'aleh al da'atcha lomar. It shouldn't come up in your mind to say, Eshne lahem haperet ba'bet gimel pa'amim Then I'll teach them, this passage and this law 2 or 3 times until they know how to recite it. Ve'eni matriach atzmi lahavinam ta'amei hadavar perusho. And I won't bother myself to explain to them, to make sure they understand what this is all about, the reasons for the rules. L'kach ne'emar asher tasim lehem. That's why they said that you should put it before them. Kishulchan ha'aruch, like a set table, muchan le'echol l'fnei ha'adam, and ready to eat before every person. Right? This is such a beautiful image. And of course, what's the central law code of Judaism called?
Shulchan
Aruch, right?
Is this where he got it?
The set table. No, this is not where he got it. I think this precedes.
No, I know. So when it was
The opposite way.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens when you shift from the omniscient narrator, before we look at the content of the law, to, I don't know, is this called case law, Alan? This is your lawyer.
What?
Like ki tikneh eved ivri. Is that, would you call that case law or not necessarily? In this case, you do this.
I mean, it's a law, but it's giving a specific example. No, this is just a law.
This is law. Okay. So here's what follows. Here's the first one. Ki tikneh eved ivri sheish shanim yavod ubashvi'it yetzeh l'chofshi chinam. When you acquire a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years. In the 7th year, he shall go free without payment. Okay, so again, before we look at the content, let's think about the effect on us of reading a story told by an omniscient narrator compared to when you do this, this is what should happen. Without the content of buying slave. Right? When you do this. So, you know what, let's stop the screen share for a minute. I'm going to take some quick comments. What's the difference? Yeah, Sarah.
But
we need you before a speaker.
It inspires resistance because it's just a set of do this, do that, do the other, without any explanation without any greater context almost.
So in you, it inspires resistance.
Yes.
Like, you have to do this? No, I don't want to do this.
Or I want to question this.
I want to question this. But let me notice then that you're already more implicated than you would be by a story told by a missionary.
Absolutely.
There's nothing to resist. It's like, oh, this is the story. I mean, you could resist the story, but it's like no one's telling you what to do. So suddenly, it's actually about your life.
Exactly.
That's why you would resist.
Exactly.
Okay. Alan.
Well, it doesn't say if you do this, then you.
No, it says when you do this.
Right.
You're absolutely
So
right.
that's,
When you do this.
So that's
different.
strange. It's suggesting that it is inevitable.
Interlopers.
When
you do this,
instead
so
of
it
if
assumes
suggests
then,
it's inevitable.
assumes slavery is, and you're going to do this. So, but are you answering? You're right. But are you answering my question about the difference between literature?
What was your question?
What's your question, Rabbi?
She asked it at the beginning.
I'm asking, until now we've had a story told by a mission narrator, right? That was biblical literature until now. Now it's when you. What's the difference in effect when you read that? Or hear that?
You're sterner.
Sturdy. Okay. All right. I see you, Rob. I think some hands were up.
I defer.
You're on deck. We're going Asher, Chaim, Ronnie Sharfman, and Rob.
I would beg to differ with Alan about the translation of the word key. I think it can be if or when,
That's true.
but this is casuistic law
Ooh,
as
not
opposed to
casuistic.
apodictic law. Apodictic law is thou shalt, Casuistic is if you commit this violation, here is the punishment, or if you do this, then you must do that.
So wait, is Asher Chaim, is casuistic law case law or not? That's what I was asking before.
Case law sounds like a British or American term within legal tradition, blah, 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 blah. I think case law is this happened and the judge ruled X.
I see. Okay, so
But casuistic is more abstract of if this happens, then do such and such.
in this situation, do this. And the 10 Commandments are apodictic.
As a lawyer, just to give you a,
Wait, shh, shh, shh.
I was just gonna say, as a lawyer, what case
Yeah.
law is when you have a case, like you took your neighbor's thingy, and then the case law is you go through what happened, you say what the law is, you apply the law to that case, you come up with your results. So this is not case law. You need a thing that happened for it to become case law.
Thank you. Thank you. So it didn't happen, but applies to it if it happens or when it happens.
This is just the law that might then be applied in a certain instance, and that would become the case law. Does that
very
help?
clear.
The
Very
person
clear.
who
Thank you.
gathered sticks on the Shabbat and God
Yeah.
said, this is the punishment.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
that's a case in case law
Yes.
and a precedent
Yes.
for future judgments. Thank you,
Excellent.
Susan.
Very clear. Thank you, everybody. Ronnie Sharpen.
Shabbat shalom. What happens when you move to the second person is, of course, it becomes personalized. It becomes more intimate, and I forget the Hebrew grammar as to whether it's a singular you or a plural you, but it doesn't really matter because when it's you, it's a dialogue of some
Then
kind.
it's you. Then it's you. Then it's about your life. Right? It's you. It's actually about your story, not the story. So just to read you something briefly that I wrote a long time ago, but I didn't put on the source sheet. This is what happened to the narrative. It didn't disappear. Rather, shifting from narrative to law shifts the very nature of the text's address. Beforehand, we were reading a story that happened to others in history. Now I read the text, and I'm commanded to become an actor and act in a certain way. In a way that ideally liberates or redeems, or at least is, behaving ethically, right? Okay, Rob and then Miriam.
I'm just going to say, in context, the Jewish people just observed the greatest miracles ever, and it was a captive audience. So I would think logically they're all ears. So I'm in. Will tell us what to do.
I'm invested in this.
Yeah.
This story has led to this moment, which tells us why they should be listening at all. Right. So what's your skin in the game? They've got a lot of skin in the game.
I just witnessed the unbelievable things, so
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm all in.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, Miriam online.
So, as a preschool teacher, we, when we want the children to understand the basis behind the rules and expectations, one of the best ways to do that is by reading a story. And there you can always find storybooks about sharing or about whatever values you want to teach. And you can present the rules first and then do the story to expand on the rules, or you can present the story first and then ideally they would internalize the values and you wouldn't need to go on to the explicit rules. But that doesn't always happen. And then you need the rules to provide the structure and make sure we all understand it the same way and that we're all on the same
Great.
page.
So you would hope they would extract it from the story, but they don't always do that, so you have to make it explicit.
Yeah.
Like a story has implications for how we live, but once you say you have, you do this in this case, that's a different level of sort of direction and just being explicit about how people need to behave. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, we're gonna go Juliet, then we're gonna go on the text. Juliet, come to the speaker.
Wait, wait, where's the speaker? Okay, okay, oh, here, okay. I'm stuck on this, the Rashi.
Yeah.
I know that Rashi tries to explain what the Torah is trying to say, but it's like, God forbid I should explain it to you, because it's like I'm just laying it out on a table for you to choose from or to eat from, and eat what, kind of like eat what there is. And there's no...
No, that's not Rashi's point.
So what is his point?
Rashi's point is that, Moshe, don't think that you're going to teach it to them to like recite it by heart. No, you have to explain to them what each thing means.
Saying that. Okay.
What each thing means, and it's ready for them and accessible like a set table.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I don't know.
I can explain the language later, but I want to go on.
Okay.
I'm happy to go through it.
Okay.
It's a little roundabout. It's a little circular.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
All right, let's go. Let me screen share. Okay, so now we're going to get to the thing about slavery. Now, okay, so let me just acknowledge, first of all, that, what we all know. Slavery is exploitative, destructive, demeaning, degrading. We wish it wasn't in the Torah, right? We wish it wasn't in the Torah. It's in the Torah. So why is it in the Torah? And why is that not the right thing over there? It's not it. Let me just try sharing one more time, because it looks right on my computer, but not on that screen. I think I know what to do.
While you're looking, there's no possibility that you two just have two different views of the same text. I mean, you pretty much were.
No, she knows more than I do.
No, I was actually asking her.
I have maybe it's some legalistic explanation is that it's a double negative, and so it's
it's a double negative. But I don't want to spend more time on the Rashi. I want to go forward. But thank you. Yes, it's a double negative. It's a little circular. I don't think there are two understandings.
Okay.
No,
Fair enough. I was raising that.
I trust you. I trust you.
Okay, I think you have to share it, Caroline, because it's not working for me. I'm sorry. Thank you.
For a second.
Oh, I don't have it. Here's there. Is it? No. All right, so okay, we'll just look at this one. Okay, so now what's this doing in the Torah? They just came out from being slaves in Egypt. Why is this the first law being set before them? It's really kind of like, whoa, like, ouch, right? So, Susan, can you wait until I get through some text? Is it a clarifying point? Yeah.
No, I just had a way of looking at it rather than seeing it as about slavery. It's about freedom. Like, let's have we ever said that a slave gets to go free after 6 years? Like,
okay, great. Okay, good. So that's a good start. Okay.
Relevant.
Excellent. So number one, slavery was a fact of the ancient world. Not a good fact, but a fact, right? That's what it was. So here we have what Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, may his memory be a blessing, says is sort of a nudge in the direction we want to go. Now it's limited because it's only about Hebrew slaves, not about Canaanite slaves, it's not about slaves that aren't Hebrew, right? It's very limited. No. Caroline, go back up. Right there. You're in a good place. Stay right there. So this is what it is. And the Torah is acknowledging this reality, right? It's when you, possibly if you, but when you, when you, and think about for a moment how radical this is, because the people who were slaves are now being addressed as slave owners. But the first thing they're told to do is to set their slave free. Right? The very first thing to do, they're told to do. Now, if you think about it, right, sometimes the oppressed become the exploiters, ultimately. Sometimes, right? Here, what they're told is, no, you were oppressed and exploited, but there are limits to how you treat a human being and a slave. Okay, again, I'm not trying to make this pretty. Alan's smiling. What do you want to say, Alan?
Limits, why not? Completely
Why not abolish it
Yeah.
completely? So that's a really good question. You know what? I'm going to do some text and I'm going to open that up. Why not abolish it completely? I'm going to leave that question open right now. I'm going to do a bunch of texts and call on people, including Wendy. Okay? Okay, so number one. Ki tikne eved evri shesh shanim yavod ubashvi'i. Hold on, don't move, hold on, Carol, stay there. I'll tell you when to go down, okay? Uvashvi'it yetze l'chovshi chinam. Okay, I'm not taking questions right now. I'm not taking comments. Just doing text. So when you acquire a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years. In the 7th, he shall go free without payment. So let's notice a few things. The word tikneh, acquire or buy, right? Or even create. And we'll look at that verb in a few minutes. That root. Eved ivri, a Hebrew servant or slave. And then look at the 6-7, right? 6 years, that's always significant, as we know in the Torah. Number 6, number 7. 7 means what? What does 7 mean?
Rest.
7 means Shabbat. 7 is the holy number. Holy number. 6 days the world was created. 7th day we have Shabbat, which is another example of freedom. Right, 6 days, can be likened to Mitzrayim, and those of us who are workaholics know that, right? I mean, I'm not comparing it to slavery, God forbid, in a sort of real sense. And the 7th is Shabbat. 7th is a kind of release, right? So there's this trope. There's this, trope in the Torah, and it's also with the Shemitah year, right? The sabbatical year. 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. Okay, so.
No, the kids,
We're going to get to that. 6, 7. The kids say that. It's a meme. We're going to get to that. Hold on. Okay. So you send the slave out free in the 7th year. Okay. So that slavery isn't endless. Okay. Next passage now, Caroline. Okay. So now there's some specifics. Im bigapo yavo bigapo yetze im bali shahu v'yatza ishto imo. If he came single, he shall leave single. If he had a wife, his wife shall leave with him. Now, note that in Deuteronomy, there's another version of these laws which are very similar, but they're also different. Namely, he's not called a Hebrew slave, he's called your brother. Right? He's called your brother. So that's interesting. And you don't go out with nothing, you go out with something. Produce, grain, this, that, right? So it's a whole different thing. Or it's moving in the direction of humanization. Let's put it that way. So again, this fits in with Jonathan Sachs' theory that what the Torah is doing here is giving a nudge to human beings given their reality. Right? It's not that God makes, just to start that conversation, makes slavery go away, because human beings live how human beings live. But the Torah sort of tries to direct you in a certain way. So we're not up to freedom yet, and we know that until industrialization, right, the world had slaves. But this is the direction. You should remember that they're a human being. I know, it's not a lot, but it's something. Okay? All right, so now, Im Adonav yitain lo isha v'yalda lo vanim o vanot, ha'isha v'yilada tiyeh le'adonaha, v'hu yetze bigapo. If his master gave him a wife. So if he had a wife, then he goes out with the wife, right? If he comes in the night, he goes out. But if his master gave him a wife and she's born him children, the wife, and her children shall belong to the master, and he shall leave alone. That's painful. But the im amor yomar ha'eved ahavti et adoni et ishti bet banai lo eitzeh chofshi. So the slave has an opportunity to say the following: I love my master and my wife and children. I do not wish to go free. So what happens in that circumstance? Something very strange. Okay, go up a little bit, Caroline. No, I'm sorry, down. I meant down. V'higisho Adonav el Elohim, v'higisho el hadelet o el hamzuzah, v'ratza Adonav et ozno b'martzea v'avado l'olam. His master shall take him before God. He shall be brought to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall then remain his master's slave for life. So that's the ritual. We're going to look at why that's the ritual. Just go down. Okay, so here's a few things before we look at the ritual specifically. So more from Ismar Shorsh. Can someone in the room read this?
Linking narrative to law, Rabbi Dr. Ishmar Shorsh.
Thank you.
To lift the Torah's legal corpus out of its narrative framework is to sunder the connection between law and life. The sense of humanity which inspires the Torah's reform of slavery is driven by the experience in Egypt. Oppression deepens Israel's conception of justice. A kingdom of priests cannot be built on the loose soil of ethical speculation, but only on the bedrock of protracted suffering. The opening section of this first legal code of the Torah points back to the ordeal which formed Israel's moral sensibility. Compassion flows from knowing pain.
Thank you. So again, the Israelites just experienced this, and now it's literally encoded in the legal code. Right? It's encoded. Their experience, the story, has become law. Okay, go down. Okay, here's 6-7, okay? Rabbi Jericho Vincent wrote about 6-7 for the Los Angeles Times. And she says, the deep soul-sustaining truth of the 6-7 meme. You don't need to observe Shabbat. This is just an excerpt, obviously. You don't need to observe Shabbat or read Torah or be Jewish to practice the spiritual art of 6-7. You just need to devote 6/7 of your life trying to improve the world and protect 1/7 of your life for joy, connection, and rest. Time that reminds you what all the struggle is for. And you don't have to observe that one, go down, perfect way.
1/7 of rest.
Oh,
in the perfect way.
okay, that 1/7 of rest, the perfect way.
And then
This is definitely not perfect. Maybe it's not nonsense at all, the 6/7 thing. Maybe it's a message out of the mouths of babes to remind us how to keep going when the world feels like too much. Let's listen. Let's continue to throw ourselves 6/7 of the time into the painful work of repairing what is broken. And let's devote 1/7 of our lives to experiencing the emerging world. In this way, we maintain the strength we need to build it. Let me just acknowledge that not everyone's work is repairing the world. Like, people need to work and make
You
money.
sure on that, Rabbi?
No. Not everyone experiences their work as repairing the world. How's that? Okay, go down. Now we're going to look at why the ear and the post of the door. And then we're going to, a couple of texts on that, and then we're going to open things up. Okay, so this is from the Talmud. Tractate Kiddushin, which is the tractate of marriage. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai haya doresh et hamikra hazeh kamin chomer. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would interpret this piece of Torah. I don't know why they're translating chomer as a decorative wreath, but I don't know. I don't actually have to translate that exactly. Okay, manish tana ozen mikol evarim shebaguf. What's the difference between an ozen? Why an ear from all the limbs of the body? Amar hakadosh baruch hu. So the holy blessed be they said. Ozen, an ear, shesham'a koli al har Sinai, b'sha'a she'amarti. Sorry, this is cut off. Let me see this for a second. B'sha'a she'amarti. It's cut off here. Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim. So an ear that heard my voice on Mount Sinai, at the moment that I said that B'nai Israel are for me my servants, because if you remember, the Israelites were described as Avdei Pharaoh, as the servants of Pharaoh in Egypt, but when they came out, they became servants of God. It's the same root, right? It's just a different object. Right, so servants no matter what. The lo avadim, and not servants or not servants of servants or slaves of slaves. Okay. Okay, and then manishtana, and then now we're asking. So that's so the ear, right? The slave of the ear that did not understand, did not really hear who they should be a servant to. They shouldn't be a servant to a person who's a servant to God. They should be a servant directly to God. So they miss that. So we have to signify that by piercing the ear. Now we ask, Manashana delet muzuzah mikol kelim shebabaya. So now why the door and the doorpost from everything else in the house? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and God said, delet muzuzah, the door and the doorpost, Shahayu Eidim ben Mitzrayim. They were witnesses in Egypt. B'sha'ah shepasachti al mashkot al shtei hamizuzot. Stop there. Stop there. No. Okay, good. So when God skipped over, right, the blood on the doorpost of the Israelites, right, the doorpost and the mezuzah, the lintel, were all witnesses to what I did. The Amarti. Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim, and
the doorposts themselves are witnesses.
The doorposts
themselves.
Yeah, the doorposts and the door witnesses.
Very cool.
Very good. Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim, v'lo avadim la'avadim. As it is said, all of Israel are my servants, and they are not servants to servants. V'hotzeitim me'avdu l'cherut, and I took them out from slavery to freedom. And this one went out and acquired a master for himself. They should be pierced before them. I think before the court. Okay, so go down. I think we're going to do one more text, and that's actually we're not going to do one. We're gonna open things up now. Let's stop the share. And let's call on Wendy and anyone else who hasn't spoken, and then I'll get to Susan.
Where's the mic?
Rabbi Wendy.
Can people hear Wendy?
I think when you say Eved Ivri, it's really meaning an indentured slave, somebody who willingly, for financial reasons, chose to sell themselves into slavery, which was very common.
That's how the rabbis understand what this is about.
Right, it was common in the ancient world. It's because there was no welfare, there was no, any other way for someone who had nothing to sustain themselves, but to sell themselves into slavery for a period of time so that they could eat and have a roof over their head and go forward. So it was actually kind of a welfare system in a way, more than it was a financial system versus an evil slave system. You know what I mean? And the publicly putting the all through the ear in front of making it publicly known, because your neighbor might say like, hey, hasn't that guy been with you already like 7 years? Why didn't you let them go free? And then this way they would know, like, no, he chose to stay. There was a there was a public demarcation of the fact that this was his choice to stay.
Excellent, thank you. Tomas?
Oh, just building on Rabbi Wendy, that just to acknowledge that, like, this particular text, I think it's rather awful. Willingly acquired a master for himself. Like, that's a very rhetorically clever thing to reverse the agency, because the indentured servant, the person who has no other option but to enter into that relationship.
Because they love their wife and children, and they're that way. Yes.
The willingness is very debatable there. Whose will? Whose free will? Whose agency? And then at the end, let him be pierced before him as they witnesses that he violated God's will. So somehow the indentured servant is being criticized for their own fate.
So here's someone who's destitute, or they want to stay for whatever reason they want to stay, because they love their wife, and they're being
it's bizarrely,
so to speak.
It's bizarrely condescending. It's sort of blaming the victim. It's demeaning the person who has very little choice.
I hear you.
So it's highly, highly problematic.
Yeah. I think what the Torah's ideal is that we belong to God, is that we don't belong to each other.
Right.
So that's what this is coming off of. And I agree with you, there's no compassion for this person who's like seeking to survive or seeking to be in a family. Okay, so I'm gonna call, I see people in the room, but I see Beth, Heather, and Beth first, then I'm gonna call people in the room. Yeah.
Shalom. The doorpost is so interesting, and it obviously the when we were getting ready to flee Egypt and we had the doorpost marked with blood, and here we've got the ear to the doorpost, and then where do we put our mezuzot on the doorposts? And there's something about this demarcation of this threshold with painting things on it, nailing things to it. It's really interesting. DeBerti.
It is really interesting, and that's why Rabbi David calls us the people of the door. Yeah, it's like, it's that liminal space and how it gets figured, figured in biblical literature. Okay, I see Brenda and then a few people in the room. Yeah.
So this reminds me in some way of the American Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. All men are created equal and certain alien rights. But it doesn't say except all those other people, those Black people, those indigenous people, those women, it kind of just leaves it out. So it's like the contradiction of, you were slaves, I brought you out of slavery, now you're going to own slaves, is so weird. But the other thing is the second part, where a man would choose to be a slave for life, because he loves his master, is probably not true, but because he wants to be with his wife and children. To have to make that kind of choice is so horrendous. And of course, that's what happened in American slavery also. Of course, they weren't given a choice. They were separated from their families. And but this is almost the same, and I honestly don't like it. And the justification later, it sounds like blaming the victim. He's choosing slavery. He's not given very good choices. So I don't like the rabbinical interpretations at all.
I hear you, and I'm not asking anyone to like it. I'm just considering its significance.
Well, I think the significance is that it set a precedent that slavery was okay into modern era.
That's
I understand that it's supposed to be a progression, but I don't see it that way, especially the second half.
I totally hear you, and I hear that it can be sort of apologizing for it and excusing it. as opposed to nudging it forward, as Rabbi Jonathan Sachs would say. Okay, so there are a lot of thank you, a lot of hands in the room, and online. So, okay, so, I'm sorry. Erica, and then Tony, right?
That's one.
I just meant, yes, you have to
sorry,
that right?
forgive me.
Okay, David, and then back to the screen. Okay.
I think it's interesting how it's not, I love my master, it's, I love my master and my wife and my children. So it's almost like God is like reminding us to love God more than your wife and children.
Because
it's
master,
almost like it's
master's the slave master, though.
Correct, but it's
So
almost
why
like,
is, how is
it's
that?
like, it's almost like if you're not going with the welfare idea, like slavery is bad, the person is being punished because he's choosing his master over like Hashem,
I
let's
see what
say.
you're saying.
But
I see
also
what you're saying.
that it's not just my master, it's his wife and children. So it's almost like God is saying, don't forget, like your allegiance is to me and not to your
Got it. Like I'm your master,
Yeah.
but you're going awry.
but even including the wife and children part.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Tony.
Okay, first of all, vis-a-vis are we all involved with Tikkun Olam? I think by the very nature of being made in the image of God, I think that implies that we are in some way, in my opinion. That's one thing. Second, one could argue. The other
Not
side,
if I'm doing violence to the world.
that takes us too far.
Okay,
afield
okay, good.
Right now.
Yeah, okay, good.
The second thing, mainly is, I don't think of myself as much of a neo-Marxist. I oppose many of my friends who are very much neo-Marxist. However, I'm feeling very neo-Marxist here and saying, is there a bit, in the 5 or 10 or 15 jobs I've had to support my family, every one of them, even the best ones, could be seen as a similar deal as the deal that these people make.
I see what you're saying.
In corporate, especially now in corporate America,
I mean, we always,
and especially in New
we
York
always
State, where you
indenture
have,
ourselves to some degree.
exactly, and
Yeah,
in
it's
New York
interesting.
State, you have very few, even if you're a world famous doctor, you have very little legal recourse if your employer says, nah, you know what? There's the door, close it on the outside.
Yeah.
There's very little legal recourse.
Yeah. Like what
I've had
protections
that
do we have?
experience once.
So it's interesting. I was thinking about that when Brenda was speaking. It's like we look back and we see history, we see it's so horrible. And we often miss, I mean, right now we're obviously living in times that are very difficult, but we often miss what we're blind to. Like what in 100 years and 200 years are people going to look back and say like, oh my God, they blah, 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 blah. Right? They destroyed the earth, for instance. Yeah.
I mean, one way to describe this, not as slaves, we're all slaves to our employer for a while in some sense, to some degree.
Or indentured servants.
Or indentured servants. Or the other way to put it is we're all whores. We're all, that's another way to put it.
Okay, I'm gonna go David Kurtz. David Kurtz, and then Ronnie, and Ruach, and is Oswaldo, and I think if there's no one else who hasn't said anything, Susan, and then we're gonna go on. Yeah.
I just get kind of frustrated when people look at this and put it in the context of today.
Wait, okay, can people online hear David? Just making sure. Yeah, okay, good.
No, some people.
Oh, some people, okay, be a little
Okay,
louder.
I'm about the same, that's the speaker right there?
Yeah.
So, I get a little frustrated when people look at this in the context of today. 90% of the world was enslaved at this time.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. Indigenous people enslaved their own indigenous people. I mean, this was what was going on. And this, what is amazing about this text is that this God of liberation, this deity, is giving a formula or ways for freedom. And one of the things that's differentiated is Hebrews as opposed to non-Hebrews. So who are the Hebrews? Well, the Hebrews are the ones who actually heard, or the ones, I mean, it's not just familial at this point. There are hundreds and thousands of these people. So the doorpost is one way of joining the covenant, of actually, I mean, directly joining the covenant. I mean, blood on the doorpost. So it kind of makes sense in that sense.
That's
And
really interesting.
And in the
So-
ancient Near East, by the way, doorposts were the exit to
So if
freedom.
you're not going to join it a different way, you're going to join it this way.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Or to really, and it's amazing to hear, you know, the
Yeah,
whole Mount
yeah,
Sinai thing
yeah.
too. But I think in the time and the place, it really does make sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great point. Ronnie Sharfman and then Ruach.
Hi, I'm going to pick up a little bit on what David just said, and I think we also need to imagine the difference between slavery and slavery, because in the Exodus narrative, we're giving this picture of an entire population being oppressed by a foreign, let's say, foreign population, building the storehouses and so forth. And then we're just reading now, it seems to me we're talking more about a domestic situation. And these slaves are servants in the household with families, and there's a much more personal relationship, for better and for worse, with some agency, some possibility to decide to stay or leave, some possibility to even sign up. And it's a much more realistic view, I think, anthropologically and sociologically, of what that society was once they became a people.
Great. So it's interesting, you know, we're putting different presumptions on the text. Are we imagining this to be an exploitative, horrible situation? Are we imagining this to be sort of a family with, like, you know, I used to have au pairs living with me, taking care of my kid? Like, what are we imagining? So we might have a more benign view of the Torah in this situation, and we might have a more like, wow, this is absolutely horrible. And that presumption will determine how we read this literature or this specific case. Laura, did you have something or no? No.
I was thinking something, which is that in either case, in all of these scenarios, none of them are as bad as the slavery in the American South.
None of them are
in
as
our
bad.
more recent history. It's a different kind of phenomenon.
As from this specific information.
From all of the ways
these
have been discussed.
The humanity is recognized more than slaves were in the American South.
Yes.
Yes. Especially in Deuteronomy, I think.
I have a question, just.
Okay, Alan and then Ruach, go ahead. And then
I mean, I like looking at it as reform and by Deuteronomy, which was, I don't know, less than 40 years later, there were actually more steps taken to give slaves certain rights, because he said they left with certain things.
Yes.
But in Jewish history, was there ever an did it evolve further than that? Did the Talmud ever say you can't have slaves, or did any? No.
Talmud did not say you can't have slaves. There may be texts that do that, and I'm not aware of them, that say that you can't have slaves. It's a good question. We can investigate that later. Okay, I know Oswaldo is waiting, and then Oswaldo, and then Ruach. Go ahead.
I'll make it very quick. I just want to take the opposite point from everyone
Opposite
else.
of what? Everybody has opposite, already opposing
I
views.
went a little bit to David. I think the text, from my point of view, is beautiful because God says, God is literally saying to you, shame on you for choosing to be a slave. You know, we're going to put a thing in the air and post it that everybody, the entire community can see it. And it's like, I come from a very small community in South America. Everybody knew everybody. Literally, it was a small town. Everybody knew the life of everybody. God forbid somebody did something wrong, everybody, it was a shame, you know. So can you imagine a situation like this? Of course, I'm assuming it's a small community. So it's like God saying to you, you better choose freedom, otherwise I will make you be the shame
What Tomas is saying, though, maybe the person has no financial options.
It doesn't.
So
I don't think it matters. I think
doesn't
that's
matter?
a separate.
Doesn't matter? Really?
I don't think it's a separate factor.
Yeah.
Because I think, look, we all have issues. We all going to present something. I can say, oh my God, I did it, I lived. Oh my God, whatever. You know, there's always going to be something for you to complain about. Excuse me if I'm going to the extreme. But I think what's beautiful about this literature is God is telling you, you may choose freedom. You chose slavery. It's unusual circumstances, but you have to choose.
I hear that. So let me just say one thing about that. So there's no historical evidence that this was brought up in the courts. So I'm reading this mostly literarily and symbolically. The 6, 7, the encoding of the root eved, to serve or to be a slave. The fact that the Israelites now have slaves when they were slaves. So I read it more as like a mode of literature than as something that happened, which makes it either less or more cruel. I'm not sure which one. Okay, Ruach, who's been waiting.
Shabbat Shalom. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I just wanted to say, building up on what some of the people said about slavery, ancient slavery is definitely not the same thing as modern American slavery. I think if we are to look at it that way, in the Torah, the closest thing to compare it to would probably be Egyptian slavery, where you are pawns in a bigger system, and your labor is being exploited to like prop up the system of inequality. Right here, like some people have said, slaves are more, it's more like a welfare system, and that's not to like wash away the evil of slavery or whatever, but you're more a member of the household, and you're more a part of the family, and this is true for slavery in domestic situations in most of the world before American slavery. And so I think being presentist in terms of slavery is a little bit like iffy, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruach, and I like that concept of presentist. Like again, what assumptions are we placing on the text? Okay, Miriam.
I'll be really brief. I just wanted to give a shout out to Rachel Adler's essay in Women's Commentary, Torah, where, she really discusses this whole thing. And just read, maybe because it's Valentine's Day, these 3 lines. She might see the Hebrew slave's renunciation of freedom, now we're talking about the wife, not as a romantic gesture, but as a naive, even stupid one. He has surrendered his power to free her or their children. He may have been her best chance for freedom. And of course, there's more to this essay that surrounds it. So,
Wow, thank you. Susan.
Wow. This is so fascinating, and I've completely come around I don't know 100 how many degrees in terms of thinking about this. And I'm wondering, and this is kind of out there, that if this isn't, especially based on what everyone has said about this being a different type of system of slavery than we know of. First of all, I want to point out that the word Ivri is used as opposed to Yisrael, and Ivri means crossing over, and I think that's really interesting. That in this context, and the fact that the word love was used, ahavti, that could this be some sort of reparations type of situation, that there's a recognition of the relationship that has been built with these folks, and that by the person going out in public and saying, I wish to remain here, it is shown to the community that it has now become a choice and is no longer the same relationship that it was before. Archie.
That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it seems like what he wants to do is remain in his status. That's what the text, the simple context of the text is saying to me. But that's an interesting thought. Okay. Connor and Barbara, and then That's it.
I wanted to just rewind a little bit. Somebody
Yeah.
made a comment about the U.S. Constitution. I believe it's the 14th Amendment that guarantees citizenship to everybody. First of all, it explicitly says they're except Indians. Now, the other point I wanted to make was about the earring thing. It was a common tactic to free your slave when they were too old to work anymore. So if you get to choose to stay, that protects you, at least was in that capacity.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go on. Oh, I said Barbara, and then I'm gonna go on. Ben, I'm sorry, we have to do a little more text. Go ahead.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. This is all fascinating. I just started to think about the metaphorical reasons for putting somebody, putting an anvil through somebody's ear along the doorpost. And I still have jet lag, so the sentences aren't coming up, but the idea is here. And the idea of, you're saying you still want to be a slave, pay attention to where you're still being narrow and where you're still being in a constricted place as a slave, if you look at the whole thing that way. And I have to think more on it.
Interesting, because I just had a thought between David Kurtz's and your point. It's like, the Exodus from Egypt is kind of like a birth story. Right. And here being stuck, a birth story, right? Like the plagues, and the sea splits, and you walk through. Being stuck at the door with blood is almost like a stillbirth. Right? Wow. Just talking symbolically. It's kind of like a stillbirth. It's like, I can't get through the passage.
You can't get through. You can't become free.
I'm stuck here.
Right. You can't open your mind. You can't, whatever that means, when I think about it in contemporary terms. Of course, it's not. But that, for me, that makes it more relatable and, a way to use it to think about contemporary life too.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. That was fun. Okay, we're gonna go forward. We're gonna do a couple more texts. We're gonna go to how God acquired the Israelites. Caroline, you got that one? No, that's okay. I'll look here. Exodus Rabbah. So there are all kinds of juicy texts on this page. Obviously, we're not going to get to everything. Uh-oh, you missed it.
Many apologies. What page is this on?
The meaning of acquisition, is that it?
How God acquired the Israelites. Okay, go up.
Page 16 on my download.
Okay, yeah, up, right there, up. Go down a little bit. No, oh, yeah, there you are. Shemot Rabbah, Exodus Rabbah. I have to figure out how printing in Safari works because it's not working out. They change their system and their website every 5 minutes, and I have no idea how to navigate it. Okay, so Shemot Rabbah has this interesting midrash about acquisition and what that means, what the root kuf nun hey means, kneh, right? So yeah, we opened up with ki tikneh, when you acquire, that root. Okay, so bo'er kama mishubachat parasha zo. Kama parashiyot ba v'kama azharot hizhir HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael b'parasha zo. So come and see how excellent this portion is, how many sections are in it, how many prohibitions the Holy One, blessed be He, cautioned Israel in this parsha. Ki tikneh eved ivri, if you purchase or acquire a Hebrew slave. Ki yikor ish et bito la'amah. So this is further on in the passage. If a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, so that was obviously done for financial reasons. Umaket aviv, and then there's another situation in which someone strikes their father. Okay, go down. Uma inyan elu la'elu. And what does this have to do with all that? Like, what do all these have to do with each other? So that's a great literary question. Amar lahem hakadosh baruch hu. Oops. Okay. Amar lahem hakadosh baruch hu l'Yisrael. So God, the Holy One, blessed be they, said to Israel, Ani kaniti etchem b'Mitzrayim be'esem makot sheher'eti. So how did I acquire Israel? So Israel, in a sense, was acquired by God because, they belonged to the Egyptians. And God's like, no. Israel's my firstborn. It belongs to me, right? Which you may or may not like, this belonging to God. But, and how did God acquire the Israelites? Through the 10 plagues. That's what this Midrash says. And then it has a proof text from Psalms, Nifla'im ma'asecha v'nafshi yodat ma'od. Wonders are your works, I know this well. In other words, God, the plagues were God's wonders. Kishem she'atem mitzuvin lo ta'avod be'achicha yotem mishesh shanim. Just as you are commanded, stay there. No, don't. Yeah. That you cannot work for your brother more than 6 years. Shelo barati et olam ella l'shisha yamim. Because I created the world only in 6 days. Lefichach natati lecha shesh shanim shetehei rashai avod be'eved ivri. So I gave you 6 years, just as I created the world in 6 days. I gave you 6 years that you can work as a Hebrew slave. Okay, go down. So, in other words, you can acquire a Hebrew slave in 6 years, right? That acquisition or last 6 years, just as God acquired the Israelites in Egypt through the plagues, and then they were set free and belonged to God. That's the emergence of the slaves, which is parallel literarily to this passage. Okay, go down. So the Ibn Ezra comments, medieval commentator, Ein l'adam ba'olam yoter kashe alav mehiyoto b'rshut adam kamahu. There's nothing in the world more difficult for a human being to bear than to be under the control of another person like himself. So there are some commentators who acknowledge the pain of slavery. Okay, go down again, please. Okay, so this is from Rachel, Dr. Rachel Annisfeld, and she has this beautiful passage about what vulnerability means in the Torah. And as we all know, there's lots and lots of passages that tell us to remember that we were strangers, to love the stranger, that command us, because we were strangers in a strange land, to remember the stranger, the widow, and the orphan amongst us. Something that I think in our society right now is being violated, trampled on in a tragic way. It says here, if the disadvantaged cry out, the Torah says, then God hears something.
It right away and responds.
Hears right away and responds. The door for these cries is always open above. Or to think of it another way, God finds such people and such parts within us to be particularly suitable and open instruments for the divine flow. So maybe about the kindergarten teacher who talked about, like, you tell the story, and then from that story comes all kinds of instructions. So from the story of being disadvantaged and from being exploited and carrying that pain with us, right? The Torah does something with that pain that sort of moves in an ethical direction and guides us to think about how others must feel. Or, okay, they are holes, like the wide open mouths of the cry, holes of vulnerability inside us. And these holes open us, if we are brave enough to be with them and love them and not reject them, to the divine. They are portals of sacredness. Because of their sense of inadequacy and exclusion, they are always reaching, wanting something, yearning for God. When we welcome them in, when we welcome the holes, they shift from being outsiders in this world to insiders in another world. So in other words, what she's doing is taking this ethical injunction of welcoming the stranger and the vulnerable and the other, and seeing it as also parts of ourselves within. So we, in either case, it has the effect, if we see it as outside of us, and an ethical injunction of welcoming the stranger in, or bringing the margins in closer to the mainstream. And also, psychically, it does something similar, right? We start to acknowledge pieces of ourselves that have been abandoned and rejected, maybe by the previous generation, and whose work we continue within us psychically, right? Okay. When we welcome them in, when we welcome the holes, they shift from being outsiders in this world to insiders in another world. If we welcome and love them, they lead us to God. They help us see the pathway to redemption, to a world of inclusion, a great big circle with no one outside. Now that's aspirational, right? Great big circle with no one outside. Yeah, it is beautiful. Okay, we can stop our share. Mary Douglas, the great anthropologist, talks about a world in which, prisoners are actually, released prisoners are actually reintegrated into society, right? Now it's